Coming up on Saturday, July the 27th, it's another big summer Saturday. That means Saratoga. That means Del Mar. That means daily racing form. DRF.com has the Saratoga handicapping store where you could get past performances, DRF picks, clocker reports, betting strategies every Saturday. Those clocker reports you can get each and every day for Saratoga, for Del Mar. And on this particular show, myself, Gino Bacola, and my good friend Barry Spears are going to be talking to you about the races from Saratoga, possibly the races from Del Mar, because right now, as we record on Thursday early afternoon, the morning line odds are not yet out for the Saturday races for Del Mar. Reason why I mention that is because there's actually a really cool contest, Barry, and I played in this thing last week. It was the first time I played in this. I know this; they've had this for a few different years, and I sent you over the information after I had played in it. I wanted to kind of see what it was like. I was curious. I thought this was awesome. It was an absolute blast. It is something for people that are like you and I, the way we play the races, where we don't have massive bankrolls. We're handicapping and trying to make a lot of money with a little bit of money. We're trying to turn a little into a lot. We're looking for 5, 8, 10, 15, 20 to 1 shots. We're not really playing short price horses all that much. There's a new contest, and there's so much I like about it. So every Saturday, there's this contest. It's called the Fun in the Sun. It is the last 5 races from Saratoga, the first 5 races from Del Mar every Saturday. So it's a total of 10 races. And it's very simple. All you have to do is bet $10 to win on one horse in each of those races. So you have $10 win bets. You register for this contest, and it's a $25 bankroll fee. It's a $25 registration fee for the tournament. And then your bankroll is $100. So the horses that you're betting, if they win, it goes right back into your account. You're also winning the money. What's so cool about this is every week, the top 5 finishers make it to the final table. The top 3 finishers win money. And 70% of the entries get paid out every week. 30% get carried over to the final table. So that final table bankroll builds and builds and builds each week. At the very least, we already know that ExpressBet put 10 grand in that. So this is like a mini Del Mar Saratoga tournament all throughout the summer. Maybe you and I have a bad day on Saturday, but next week we might have a really good day. And then we could get qualified for the final day. All you have to do is have one of these weeks where you have a pretty good day and you finish in the top 5, and you've stamped yourself a shot at the final table where you'll be playing for a bunch of money. And these are the races you're already looking at. It only costs you $125. It's not $1,000 to enter. You could play in this thing every week and give yourself 5 or 6 chances. I really think this is super player friendly, Barry.
Yeah, this is a really, really good idea. And I haven't played yet myself, but the idea of, connecting Saratoga and Del Mar is fantastic, because especially with the later races, because it's right in the middle of the day, and, you go from one to the other and they overlap sort of at the end. So,
Yep.
it'll go pretty quickly towards the end of the contest. But I mean, it's just loads of opportunities here. There's like 1,000 ways to lose money at the track and not many ways to win. But this puts you in a position where, like you said, you have a decent day. Even if you have a decent day at one of these tracks, could potentially put you in the top 5.
Absolutely.
So, it's just, a matter of the day, what you're doing, and how you attack the races. Obviously, tournament play is a little bit different, where you're kind of looking for prices. Chalk really doesn't win these kind of things too much, but it's definitely a great exercise in handicapping, and you win some money on top of it all.
So if you've watched our videos, it's not as if we're going to do a whole lot differently in these videos, because that's how we handicap already. We'll go through the last 5 races at Saratoga for Saturday first. We'll talk about those. We'll give you the horses that we like. We'll talk about who the horses are to beat. Those are ones that you probably won't be betting in these types of tournaments. For me, I never start with those types of horses. Maybe at the very end, If you are in certain spots and you're trying to block someone, you might have different types of strategies. But for the most part, I'm looking for all those 5-1 and above horses because I want to take as many swings as I can with those types of horses. That's where you can move up and down the board, and I get to keep the cash myself. Like, I want to bet the horses that I like because it's going to go right back into my express bet account. Every week, the top 3 finishers, they'll get the prize pool 60% for the first, 25% for second, 15% for third, and then the 4th and 5th place finisher win a final table seat. And then 30% of the entry fees carried over to the final table. And that final table, the top 5 finishers will all get paid in that final table. So
one question
yes,
I
sir.
have for you, and I'm sure a lot of the tournament players will have this too. Is this a live tournament where it's race by race, or do you have to
Yep.
lock in your picks
Nope.
first?
And you can make a change too. You can make so it's not a pick and pray. It's live.
Right.
And I was playing with my dad last week too. He made a couple wagers because he gets nervous sometimes, so he'll make all of his bets because he doesn't want to forget. Because if you don't make all
that's
10,
how I am too.
right?
I'm
Yeah,
with
and
him.
that's in this type of format, it's the best way to do it because you can make a change. So if you win, or let's say you're 0 for your first 6, and then all of a sudden the horse that you have in one of the races gets bet down, and you go, you know what, that horse is too short. I have to pick a bigger price. You can do that.
Oh, that's
So
good. Yeah.
it's awesome. You can make changes. You just have to make sure you bet all 10 of your horses. Even if you're way up, you make sure you bet the last 2 races, or else you'll get disqualified. If you don't bet all 10, you won't be counted in. Really cool format. And just like what Barry did, if anybody has any questions while you're playing, or if you're thinking about playing, shoot me a message. I'll help you out. Cost you $125 and it'll come right out of your ExpressBet account. And Barry and I are both going to take a swing this weekend on Saturday at this Fun in the Sun tournament. So we will we'll talk about the Saratoga races. The morning line odds for Del Mar are not out as we are talking. If they're up by the time we're done talking, we'll get into the first few races from Del Mar. We'll talk about those. If not, we'll just hit the Saratoga races, because when we're doing a show like this and we're wanting to give you prices and we're wanting to give you contest horses, not knowing a morning line is really difficult as far as just talking about who to play, who not to play, and that sort of thing. So I will give you a separate video later after the morning line odds are out that I'll post on the YouTube channel and on the podcast with some thoughts on Saturday Del Mar, if that's the case. But let's get into Saturday at Saratoga, my friend. We're going to go to race number 8. So this kicks off your late pick 5. So, and that's what's cool about these races. We're all looking at these races anyways, right? We're already having
already in it. You're right. Already involved, invested in the whole
they're
thing.
not random races at different tracks or different places you wouldn't be looking at. 5.5 furlongs on the turf course. We've got maiden special weights. These are fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. So from a talking standpoint, the horses to beat in here: Scarlet Poppy, 2-1 on the morning line down on the inside for Wesley Ward, coming in off a runner-up effort last time out. Arasu, just a horse that's tried to get on the grass a couple times last year for top-notch connections. You have Brown and Irad Ortiz Jr. This horse didn't run poorly in either of those 2 starts. She's been off for 11 months now, and she'll try the turf for the first time, but she's definitely a horse who will take some money. I'm sure Lamorna for Bill Mott will probably get some money as well. But those are the horses to beat. Those aren't necessarily horses you'd want to play in a contest, or those aren't always the pick 4 or pick 5 type of horses we're looking for. Give me a couple of horses that might be on your radar here.
Yeah, there's a couple of horses I do like, but one I really like a lot. Out of the whole sequence, there's one horse in this race that I like quite a bit. I'm not going to start with that horse though. There's 3 that kind of caught my eye in here. I'll start with the first 2. Number 2, Tipple. This horse has some pedigree, some turf pedigree,
Yep.
and some turf speed, which is obviously key in a 5.5 furlong turf race. And the workouts indicate this horse is kind of fast. So I'm going to take a second look at this horse, even first time out, because the horses that have run don't look all that overwhelming. And I could see a case for Tipple in this spot. to just get the lead and run them off their feet, basically.
Half to
Um,
3 winning turf siblings, as you were pointing out. Hoot Nanny won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Grade 1 winner, and a half to another horse who won first time out. So lots of precocity and win early in this pedigree here for Tipple. Where else
and
were you
three
going?
bullets,
Yeah,
going into the
training
race.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, just lots of positives.
The other is Mac Tamor, the 3 horse. Kind of the same deal. I think this horse getting off the turf kind of muddies this horse's form a little bit. You know, going into that synthetic race on March 8th, I'm sure they didn't really know what they were going to get from this horse on that surface. And I think it's a factor of them. Uh, I think that was an off the turf event, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not mistaken. Um, so you can kind of put a line through that one. And then the off the turf event at Ellis, they wanted to get on the turf, couldn't get on the turf, and now they end up in this spot at Saratoga, which is kind of bizarre. But this isn't a bad spot. And I think, getting back on the turf is the key. This horse probably could have used that extra half a furlong in that first event on February 9th. So I'm going to give that one a shot at a nice price at 12-1 on the morning line. But the horse I like the most in here is the 8 Day Dawning. If you look at that race at Indiana Grand or Horseshoe Indianapolis on June 18th, this horse was kind of stuck behind a
Mm-hmm.
wall of horses at the top of the stretch, couldn't get out,
Never
had
had a
enough
shot.
run to win the race, and rightfully probably was the favorite that day. Um, and anything close to that effort and getting out sooner, this horse would win.
This
So
horse
I,
got
I
bet
think
at Keeneland too in the debut.
yeah, yeah,
Like this.
and the horse can run. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sure the people that look at his buyer figures and be like, oh, well, this horse is kind of low on the buyer scale. But I think that was a factor that were in that race. I think this horse can run faster than that. And if you look at that race in particular on June 18th, you can see that the whole time the horse was kind of bottled up, didn't get a real chance to run until late. I think with a better ride here or better luck and timing, this horse should be a winner.
There's an interesting race that a lot of these horses are coming out of. You have 4 horses in here: Scarlet Poppy, Aunt Nona, Echo Baby, and Lamorna. They're all exiting this same race on June the 28th at Belmont at Aqueduct. So in the race that we're going to watch, they were the 1, 2, 3, and 9 are the horses that we're looking at. I actually thought the 2 horses coming out of this race that I liked the most were the horses that are the biggest prices. Because if you look, threshold ends up winning this race, gate to wire. Scarlet Poppy is the 9 who's sitting second and just getting a pretty good trip, chasing Lone Speed. And then there's not a lot of movement. Let's watch the 3, Aunt Nova, down on the inside, right? Tucked in right there, just inside of Scarlet Poppy. But Aunt Nova has nowhere to go, right? Aunt Nova right now wants to go, the 3. The 3 is traveling better than the 9, but the 3's got nowhere to go, kind of pinned in right now, still just waiting and waiting and waiting. And unfortunately, by the time Aunt Nova gets a shot, right, like about here, it's just a little too late because the 5 risk threshold is just cruising. And you could see Aunt Nova still kind of trying down there in the second spot, tries to angle off, and I think just gets a little bit of the run dulled. I didn't think that was a bad effort. Echo Baby was the horse that was in the second flight, kind of had to really kind of struggle early on, got at a take hold, got caught inside horses, was just not the best of trips either. So those 2 I actually like better coming out of that very same race, that June the 28th race. I thought the 2 and the 3 out of that race ran the best. So if you're looking for pick 4, pick 5 horses, if you're looking for maybe contest horses, Echo Baby will go second start back off the bench. The key for me, this horse is going to be a lot more forwardly placed in this race with Carmouche back up and the way that she ran in her first 2 starts. So she runs in September, shows decent speed that day. She loses to a nice horse named Life's an Audible. Then she comes back in November. She chases a Lone Speed winner. She just doesn't get to the lead that day. And she tries to get more forwardly placed, but she just misses the break last time out and she ends up in a bad spot. I think they're going to, at the very least, try to get aggressive and make sure that she's towards the front end, especially with the outside draw. So, yeah, she puts 2 starts together. I could see some improvement there. And then we saw from the 5, Aunt Nona, that was just her career debut. She could also improve. Like there's lots of options in here for price horses in this race.
Oh
Definitely.
yeah, always. Usually in these kind of races, these five and
Mm-hmm.
a half furlongs on the turf, they're usually
Yep.
kind of wide open events. And this one is no different.
Yep. A lot of opportunities for horses in that like 6-1 between 5 and 10 ish range. Let's move to race number 9. First level allowance here, mile and a 16th on the inner turf course. Barry, the horses that will be pretty tough to beat in here. This is actually one of the more spread out races that you're going to find. Like even just trying to talk about who to isolate. Risk tolerance is obviously logical and talented, but for this 3-year-old who's making just his second start, he draws way to the outside in a field of 12. That's not going to be easy. And then after him, you have a bunch of horses who could be in that next range, like 4 or 5-1. West Hollywood was a runner-up last time out. He's not done very much wrong. Wouldn't be shocking at all to see Navy SEAL take some money, Maiden Beach take some money. I think Time Song's going to take a little bit of money here too. Very, very competitive field here, race 9 at Saratoga. Who are some of the horses you want to start with?
Yeah, this is like you said, this is a tough race. But I did find that there's just quite a bit of speed in here, especially from the outside. I think Risk Tolerance is going to have his hands forced to try to get position and go. If they don't, they'll have to drop all the way back to last, and
Yep.
that's not ideal either. I just think they're in a precarious spot, just being on the outside, on the way outside. Actually, win this race
Sure, but at
9 to 5 ish. And I just think it's a tough task, especially with a horse like West Hollywood, who has some speed and pace to get up there
yep.
too. Um, there's a couple of horses
Drunk on Stocky,
inside
the
of that.
outside's got to go. Yeah.
So the big long shot will probably have to get position, and I think they're going to try to go with Moonlight.
Yep. Maybe Main Beach.
That will probably need to be forwardly placed as well. So I think there's going to be a nice pace here for some closers to come in. One horse that I raced, this horse ran, they won wire to wires, Main Beach. I think Irad is savvy enough to keep this horse off the front end, project by sitting a nice pocket trip behind the speed. I think that horse is probably not even going to be 5-1. Dancing Groom is a long shot that I think has a chance, basically on the drop in class, coming out of these graded stakes, then into ungraded stakes, and ran well in the last
horse by horse.
Right.
Who's been losing
running.
to?
Timberlake.
They're all stakes races.
Hades, Dornoch. I mean,
Honor Marie and Timberlake. I mean, he's just running in stakes race, completely embarrassing himself.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and he's only had the one crowd of 10. He basically splits the field that day. He's not completely up against it. He is getting major class relief.
This horse is going to get as well. There probably will be some pace for him to run at, and these are the type of horses that you want to include in your multis, and definitely in a contest situation.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we've had that happen in contests before, and that's like a double win.
Oh, such a nice separator when that can happen.
Yeah. When you're the only person on a horse and it wins, man.
Go ahead.
But I had one more.
Please.
Is the 9 Mogo. I liked that effort. It was a big improvement off of that. Jose D'Angelo does really well with these kind of return runnees in a spot like this, getting Lasix again, I think this horse has a chance and kind of live at 15-1.
Mogo had a really nice effort last time out on the grass, and that was the first turf start. I'll give you a couple price horses. What you were talking, they decide to sit off a little bit because that worked out pretty well last time out when coming from off the pace.
Yeah.
They do have the ability to show speed as well when he broke his maiden. I think he fits at the level. He's one of those horses where it'll come down to what trip can they get. The May 4th race was a race in that stakes race, and he just does not have a good trip. And if you eliminate that and you're looking at his last few races going long utility, I like that he's shown that he can win with different trips. The 3 comes back to the turf. This is a horse who was faced Forever Young, obviously, in the UAE Derby, was overmatched that day. And if we're just talking about, on the grass, this horse was a winner on the grass and was grass. Maybe one to keep an eye on. And the last horse I thought was at least worth mentioning. So I think we hit most of the other ones we talked. Yeah, those you hit on Mogo. The 11. So his most recent start, he had legitimate trouble. He gets completely stopped. He may not have won that race. He would have been a lot closer that day. So now let's look at his form. If you can eliminate his last race and know that he had excuses and race, was his first start in a few months, he has races that are definitely competitive. Jam, that race would stack up very well if he showed up with something like that. Now, and that's what it comes down to in these races. Does he have that? Tricari won the Belmont Derby and the American Turf and was 10th race, where Tricari won 3 out of 4 races, all of them stakes races, and was a neck away from winning the Penn Mile. That is good form. But with the run, you're not, things need to go well for horses like this. But he's going to go third start of the form cycle. He's absolutely good enough on his best day to be right there. Things have to work out perfect. 6 different horses that are close to double-digit odds in this race.
Man, I mean, this is, it's going to be interesting how the public actually bets these couple of races, the 2 that we just talked about.
Yeah.
The last 2.
Because those are the really favorites that we could see floating up even a little bit, like Risk Tolerance. He'll be 5-2, but I don't think he's going to be like a 4-5 favorite like you might see for a Chad Brown horse, because it's such a challenging competitive race. So,
and then the outside
a little,
post,
yeah,
it's really interesting. I think yeah,
it's 7-2 maybe.
Yeah,
3-1 in that range, like 12 kind of being close.
Yeah,
maybe those 3 horses.
Yep. Between the 3 of them, I wouldn't think 3.5-1, that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to the short field of the Jim Dandy, but it's an interesting race because we have your top 2 betting choices from the Kentucky Derby here. The 2 horses that are kind of polar opposites, because Sierra Leone is very consistent. You know what you're going to get from him, but he's a little bit quirky and a little inefficient late, and because of his running style, it makes it a harder for him to win all the time. But you're going to get a nice rally for him. He's going to pass a bunch of horses late. Fierceness, you don't know what you're going to get from him. You really don't. He's won 3 of his races out of the 6. They're awesome wins. his debut win, his Breeders' Cup Juvenile, his Florida Derby, awesome. The other races,
I don't know.
you know,
I kind of think there's legit excuses in the
no,
bad
no, and that's the
performances.
thing. Like he has
Like the
excuses,
Derby
but he's
is an
definitely
outlier in itself.
oh yeah, and he's definitely not, but he's definitely not an overcome everything. Like
No,
he'll
no, no,
pack it
no.
in,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and I don't, and it's not fair to say he's not a fighter, right? Because I'm not willing to say that if he had to battle with another horse, he won't battle him. But he's one that like when things start to go against him, and they're legitimate things, like you pointed out. I'm not. They're not excuses. They're reasons,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's reasons why he hasn't run well, but those reasons do pop up. And it's funny because you'd normally think of the closer as a little less consistent, but
Right,
he's a little bit
shaky.
less consistent. But smaller fields like this are probably better for him,
Yes.
right? Being drawn to the outside where he can kind of work out his own trip a little bit more in a small field where he can go a little bit faster if he needs, or then he can slow things down a little bit. He doesn't need to be right on the lead. He's
No,
one sitting off
I mean his
before.
juvenile, yeah, he was not on the pace. He was
No,
not leading that race until like on the far turn.
he just doesn't
Um,
want to be lengths off the lead,
right. He
right?
can't.
Like,
He's not going to be a closer type.
no, but
He
he
needs
can
to be up
sit
front and
a
clear.
little.
That's really his thing. I think if this horse is clear and out in front with nobody in front of him, a horse to the side of him, he's fine with. I think when horses kind of get in front of him, he kind of watches.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I still think you can push the button on him and he'll go. Um, and this race kind of sets up in a weird fashion because on paper it looks like Sierra Leone should be what he is, even money
yep.
and real good shot to win this. But I don't think it's that easy because the track profile doesn't play to horses like Sierra Leone.
And in
And
smaller fields like this, it's a little. If
it's
this was
tough.
a
It's
field of
tough.
10 with 4 extra horses and this same field, I would feel more confident with that. But a lot of times, some of these horses might just be content with sitting second or third and not battling on the front end. Like, Seize
Right,
the
because there's a
Gray.
situation where Batten Down and Pony Express duel.
Yep. Or see and Seize the Gray and even Fear. Like, there's a version of this race where those 4 horses are going.
Right.
That one version, or however many simulations of this
Right, out
race
of
where
10, maybe
right
3,
where
like
all those
something like that.
horses are pushing each other. But then there's another bunch of simulations where one of them breaks alertly if it sees the Gray, who gets away early and then is aggressively handled, and then the other 3 horses are just kind of content sitting right off and not really pushing the horse that much because they'll sit a close second, maybe batten down to the outside, and then you could have the next tier of horses right behind them. Or Pony Express goes and pushes Seize the Gray, and then you've got Batten Down and Fierceness sitting behind them. See, I think the same kind of thing with Batten Down, who he wants to go, and his
Right, and
best races are on the front end, but he's actually set off a little bit before, and I wouldn't be that shocked if he did, because the like his 2 races in winning were a maiden special weight race where they think he's the best horse. He's a heavy favorite. So let's just go and get aggressive with him, and we're not going to get cute. And then he's in the Ohio Derby. There was no other
no other
speed in that
speed.
race on
Yeah.
paper. So they I think got a little more over aggressive just to make sure nobody else is going with us. Let's go fast, get to the front, slow things down. I think he also can sit if the 2 other, like, Seize the Gray and Pony Express or Fierceness, any combination of them were just a lot faster than him early. I think he'd be okay with sitting. So I feel like you and I are kind of it. I don't know if it's as easy as it looks on paper that these 4 horses are just going to line up all the way around and set it up perfectly for Sierra Leone.
Right. You would think this is going to be more of a rider's race and the cat and mouse games going on, but my thought is that Batten Down could they basically I think they may just concede the lead to Batten Down and kind of follow that horse, and that might be the kiss of death, because batting down might be able to put him to sleep and
Yep.
then run away from these horses at the top of the stretch. Now, it just depends on how the jockeys or the connections kind of want to map this race out. But I think that's a situation that can definitely happen where Fierceness doesn't get too aggressive from the outside, because they obviously know they're going to be clear, and kind of batting down could put them to sleep.
And if we're
Whereas,
talking about pick fours and pick fives and stuff, I have to use him just for the reason that you said,
right,
because
that's why I like him in this spot.
and then if we're talking about a contest, he might be really one of the only, like when you go through the field, he might be the really horse that makes sense to bet at like 4-1, 5-1 in this race if he holds close to that morning line, because you probably can't be betting Fierceness or Sierra Leone if you're looking at that like it that way. You're looking for horses that are going to be bigger than 7-5.
Right.
And then of the bust out long shots,
I'd say Gould's Gold would
would
be the
probably be
one
your
there
better, would
because
probably
of
be
the
your best case because of the
because of
trip,
the trip, right?
right? But and he wasn't that far behind Batten Down, but Batten Down does look kind of like the horse you'd want to play in this race, or if you're that you
You
could
would
get
think,
to.
yeah.
So you keep going though. It sounded like you had more, and you were getting a
Well,
little bit more into the rest of the field.
yeah. I mean, Batten Down should sort of be the controlling speed here, despite Fierceness being in the race, unless they just want to just go right at him. And I'm not sure if they will. I mean, there's definitely that possibility where they just think they're faster, but I'm not sure. I don't think they're going to take that kind of gamble in a race like this. Um, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, the two I have circled here are Batten Down and Fierceness. Sierra Leone obviously can win, but I think that horse is just going to have a tougher trip than everybody else. Not a big field, like you said, so there's that possibility that this horse could lay closer. Depending on the pace situation, it could either cook this horse or
And
help him.
yeah, and if it just depends, right? If he's closer because they're going slow, I think he's okay.
Right, he's all right,
If
but
he's closer by like I have to
you
try to be
just have to
closer
keep up,
to
right?
this
Trying
group,
to
then
keep up.
that may hurt him, and that's where I don't. And that's I'm completely
That's
in
where the
agreement with
gamble
you,
is basically on Sierra Leone. If you
and
think
that's
that the pace is going to be slow enough where this horse can kind of hang around and finish him off, then yes. If you think it's going to be fast and this horse is just going to drop back maybe too far, because Saratoga isn't really a closer's kind of track. It plays more
no,
like
and
Gulfstream than it does, let's say, Belmont.
he's a horse he'll be scary, you know, down the stretch if he's in striking range and it's setting up for him. And you don't have him, you're gonna be like, okay, he could, but you should be able to tell pretty early in the race with him.
Hmm.
I think the way it's
Absolutely.
shaping out, like, because if it's just going slow and he's close, like we said, you're probably okay because he's probably outkick these horses if he's within
In
a
range,
couple
yeah.
lengths of them. But if they've separated him or they forced this horse to work harder earlier than he's used to, then that may be where just the versatility of Batten Down and Fierceness could just be the difference. The fact that they've shown they've got that much more tactical style, smaller field, they can sit there and they might have like another gear where you can ask them. If you ask Sierra Leone early and he's grinding, are you going to be able to ask him one more time? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, not only that, but you got to keep them straight, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. There's some issues there. I
If
mean,
you're
even
tired
money.
and you've already been working him, right? And he's now, I'm not like, he hasn't been in all three legs of the Triple Crown or overworked, but he's been racing consistently
Yeah.
now, in some of these big taxing races against the best. Small field, but you've got some of the top horses in the division showing up, and we'll see who will, how many of these horses can come out of here and make their way to the Travers coming out of last week. Dornick and Mindframe, those two are now towards the top of the division. Dornick put together wins in the Belmont and the Haskell. Those are a couple big wins for 3-year-olds. And Mindframe had every opportunity in both of those races to get by. He's kind of been his own worst enemy so far. And I think we got to give credit and maybe a little criticism to both sides, right? Because Mindframe has been a little quirky, but Dordick also has to battle back and fight on and make
Right.
it tough on him and make him have to work so hard that he has to kind of overexert himself and veer off and maybe get a little bit green late because he's not that fit yet overall as a horse. Maybe Sierra Leone, maybe Fierceness puts himself back in that conversation. Heck, a horse like Batten Down. We see horses like this all the time.
Right.
The
Get
second
hot
half
at
of
the
the
right
year,
time. Yeah.
right? He wins this race. He wins the Travers. Boom. He's right in that conversation with the top 3-year-old. So intriguing race in the Jim Dandy. Let's move along, Barry, to race number 11. We have New York Bred's First Level Allowance Company going a mile and a 16th on the turf course here. The number 2, Rabaja, was a 5-length wire-to-wire, gate-to-wire winner on June the 14th. Pretty impressive that day. Earned an 85 Beyer speed figure. He had run a little bit better than the races before that had looked, but that did kind of come out of nowhere, especially showing that sort of speed. And it really wasn't like he went. It was an honest pace, but it wasn't like they were flying. So you could expect that he could get other pressure in here from horses like Gem Mint 10, who wants to be forward. Starquist doesn't want to be too far out of it. And towards the outside, when it willing or risk it all to probably show a little bit of speed with that outside draw, just want to be tactically forwardly placed, who's willing to risk it all, third off the bench. So those horses will be part of the pace. One that I want to start with, Barry, that I think is a little bit interesting, the hurdler, Topic Changer, who was, this is a horse who was racing 2 miles hurdles for a while, about a year. And before that, actually had some races that were pretty competitive. This horse broke the maiden against New York bred maiden special weights with a 75 Beyer speed figure. Won a 35 non-winners of 2, going a mile and a 16th at Saratoga with a 78 Beyer speed figure. Those are really competitive with the field like this. You look at the Beyer par. This doesn't always work that way, but the Beyer par in this race is an 80. I believe it's at the top, yeah, on the right corner. So the 7's a little interesting because this horse was off for 13 months, shows back up, and I thought ran pretty well, finishing 4th that day. I think the 2 horses that come out of that race, Clear Conscience, also a little bit interesting to me today. Barry, I'm fascinated by this race because just from a betting standpoint, I think a lot of strange stuff could happen. And there's nobody that I love that much. It's just hard to find all that much separation, I thought, between these horses. Do you have a different opinion, or are there a couple in here that you want to mention?
Yeah. There's a couple of horses coming out of that June 30th race at Aqueduct. And I went through and I watched that race a couple of times, and it was kind of like almost like a merry-go-round race, where Clear Conscience and the winner, Liar's Poker, were kind of 1-2 the whole way around. And it kind of ruined the chances of Tita's Trotter, who I do like in this spot, because I think the pace situation is going to be a lot better
Source got bet in there. Yep.
For this horse. Because if you look at the past performances, it just looks like the horse just didn't run at all. But the horse was kind of up close and kind of with the pace, but the horse seems to be more of a closer than he is of a horse that wants to be forwardly placed. And obviously on the turf, late speed is king. And I think this horse will get a better trip. Well, I don't think, maybe not a better trip, but a better run at it, because of the fact that there's going to be a lot more livelier pace up front. And at 15-1 in a contest situation, or pick 5 situation, these are the kind of horses that get you over the top and get you into a situation where you're going to cash a nice ticket.
Yep.
The other horse that kind of caught my eye too is the 9 Easy Roll.
Yep.
This one
This
kind
was
of
my
fits
third horse. Yeah.
the angle that I like a lot, where a horse comes in from 2 to 3 and either matches or improves on their last Beyer number.
Yep.
So November 3rd, this horse ran a 74. I know the buyers aren't that great on turf, but it gives you a benchmark to
Yeah,
look at.
they're right there. They're competitive.
Right. And then, the horse won going away that day, then comes off the bench in April and runs a comparable race. And I
And
think
showed some really good late energy in there too. Was about 6 or
that was
7
way wide too.
off it was at the top of the lane, was still 8th, and was moving through some tight, was moving through like really, really well. And I
Yeah,
no
I think
knocks
the
on this
pace
one.
situation, improves this horse's chances
Yep.
greatly.
Yep. I had the 7, 1, and 9 as some of the horses on my major radar. Barry mentions the 3, Titus Trotter, as a big time player. Yeah, some fun horses, and we're both in on the 9. Yeah, easy roll as one to include, definitely in your pick 4s and maybe a contest play. Let's finish up Saratoga Saturday with race number 12. This one is New York bred turf race for fillies and mares, maiden special weights. Race number 12 goes a mile on the turf. Summer Whirl was a runner-up last time out for Graham Motion, was beaten in neck. Summer Whirl was in front of Autumn, who was 6-1. I will say it's kind of going through the field. There isn't that much speed in this
No,
race.
I mean, at least that you can see. I
Like
mean,
there's
Autumn you can see
yeah,
is sort of consistent in that regard, but not really.
yeah,
I mean, the horse went to the lead last time, but that was kind of the first time
yeah,
since like way back in May
yeah.
last year. The horse kind of went to the lead once, but this is really murky, the
And
whole thing. And this is the kind of race that'll give you fits, especially being the last race of the card.
so based on kind of what we're talking about, I want to start with one horse that I think will be really close to the lead, and that's the 12. In all
Yes,
my
I
dreams,
actually had the same kind of idea too.
because her debut race was really good, and she sat like a nice tactical trip, wasn't far off of it at all. And then in her second start, she wanted to be closer. We can pull this race up because there's a couple horses that was in there. She's actually favored on June the 8th in that race. So she's the number 4 in here. And it's not like she has a bad start. She just doesn't really have a shot because there's traffic and it pushes her back. Like, she's fine. She's the 4. She's like right in the mix with the horses down to the inside that are fast. But the problem is, look, she's like 4th, and there's 3 horses directly to her inside, all push her all the way back. So and that it's not. I'm not even saying that was the wrong thing, because maybe she doesn't want to be caught up battling with all those horses. But it was kind of one extreme or the next. It was either be up there battling with all of them, or now
Right,
you're
or
8th.
drop back. Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're 9th here, and you're just way farther off than you ever would have wanted to be. And so following this, she runs a really good race. She ends up getting in between horses. She has to back up. She's like 11 lengths off at one point from when, like, she was close to the front end, and then even about 4 or 5 lengths off. And she keeps getting shuffled back farther and farther and farther. And she gets to the point right here where she's able to get off the rail. And now at least she's in the clear. So that's why she's actually able to finish the race. She starts to move pretty quickly. But now all of a sudden, they press the button, and she's got to go wide as can be. Watch how wide she has to get forced on the turn right here with the blue cap. Widest of all, way out there. And then she like almost loses her footing when the 5 kind of bumps into her, and it sort of like makes her stop and kind of start over again. And now watch the 4 who flattened out and kind of looked done, and she kind of starts to grind back into it again. I just think the trip was terrible for her. She obviously has ability. She's kind of wrapped up on here late. And I think this is one of those maybe a blessing in disguise, because she's drawn to the outside. They just go, hey, let's put the blinkers on and let's just go. And I'm not saying they're going to go 22 flat and be like dueling, but hey, let's get out of the gate really fast. Get position and look over. And if nobody else is going, let's just keep going on with it. If they want to go, let's sit second or third. We're going to make sure that it's not traffic that gets me beat in this race.
Yeah, well, I had the same idea, but with a different horse.
Awesome. Talk to us about who.
The 6, She Is All Business.
Yep.
I think that's what the game plan is, but yeah, I kind of have to be a little bit careful because there's a situation where this pace gets hot up front, and then it would just explode the board because it would be a complete crapshoot as to who would be the best closer out of all these horses. Obviously, North End Lady is going to go, and probably Autumn. I mean, on paper, but I still think She Is All Business, especially that last workout.
So her first race, she has no chance. She just completely misses the break. And then in her second start, she draws post 12. So even if you have a fine start, you really have no shot unless you're going to be shotgunned to clear over. So you're just wide. And those are races that we don't know what her running style is yet. And it very, very easily could be speed in a race where there's not much speed. And she's not at all a horse I would dismiss. Because they're just the horses to beat in here are such deep closers like Summer Whirl in a race that's lacking that early speed that it's really hard to just focus in on this horse. Is she the horse to beat? Absolutely. But could she have the same exact trip that she had in her last start? Yes. Again, and be like a fine second or third. So,
well, the workout pattern really jumped out at me. You see how that last workout is just so far superior than the ones before, and this horse is getting Lasix for the first time. I mean, Linda Rice's numbers with horses coming off this kind of layoff are excellent. I mean, first time acquisition she's excellent with. I mean, everything lines up. I mean, she does well when Irad rides her horses. Everything falls in line, I think, for this horse. And I don't think we're going to get 10-1, but here's hoping. But I think this horse is live and has a real good shot. The other one is Jose Ortiz on the 8, Princess Summer. Kind of along the same lines, where this horse was off slow a couple of times, and it's just strange that Mike Maker claims this horse for $75,000 and ends up in a state bred spot that's usually kind of winnable.
The intent is there for this horse to show more speed. You can just see it. You can see it and expect
blinkers on. Gets Jose Ortiz, who rides very well for Mike Maker when he does ride for him. But just the claim itself, I think Mike Maker did this the other day, claimed one out of a claiming race, put him in an allowance race and won. I think it was yesterday at Saratoga, which was Wednesday. But I think this one is like you said, the intent is there for this horse to improve and probably try to win. I think the intent there is to take this event.
I will show the first part of this race with North End Lady because I think this one will get bet a little bit, but it was in the same with In All My Dreams, and we were focused on In All My Dreams, and we watched it last time on the 4. Watch the 11 here and just how it's just not an easy first furlong or so. This horse gets parked wide.
I mean, basically that did him in.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference in winning and losing. Yeah. Look at this horse going into the first turn, and they still just want to get to the front end. I mean, that's such a brutal loss of ground.
Ran excellent.
First turn. And even now, tries to run off, but still getting pushed a little bit, right? That Bobby Zem's girl is still pushing this horse, and then the 3 is still pushing this horse to the inside. So you've got just never able to clear off. I forgot how impressive the North End Lady race was because this horse is battling all the way around.
Every step.
And this was the first start in 10 months also since September of last year.
It's funny because I have a lot of success with horses like North End Lady, not on the comeback race after a race like this, the race after
the third one.
Yes, that's the only reason why I'm not too.
Not that she can't win, but I think she can be. I think she's going to be bet.
She's going to be in there. Yeah.
She's definitely going to be around. She figures well. She's a horse that you may not be able to use in your contest because she might be 5-2 or 3-1, but she's hard to leave out of your pick 4 or pick 5.
Absolutely.
in that situation, because look, she's got the clearance here and she just gets tired rightfully. She has every right to get a little bit tired in this spot. She runs a winning race and she just gets run down. Like, this is a brutal beat.
Right.
It's
It's the old saying, lose lose the race, win the war.
yeah.
Where
Won the
this
battle.
sort
Exactly.
right,
Exactly.
or lose the battle,
Yep.
you know,
Won the battle, lost the war. Yep.
right. There you
Yep.
go. I couldn't
And
get it out right.
yeah, no, well, we knew where we were going. I'm watching Cobra Kai right now, so I think I heard that recently. I'm rewatching some of those. So as we finish up here at
Sensei
Saratoga,
John Kreese.
there we go, baby. Kreese and Terry Silver, and I'm watching them all right now as we finish up with Saratoga. So again, these fun in the sun contests. Last 5 Saratoga, first 5 Del Mar. The Del Mar odds are up. Do you want to go through them all? It's up to you. You let me know.
It's up to you.
Let's pull them up. Well, you know what?
I'm flexy.
They're up. They're up. We're talking. Let's pull up some Del Mar, and we can at least take a peek at the first 5 races and give out a horse or two that we think are playable contest horses. So we're gonna flip on over to Del Mar. What's cool about Daily Racing Form right now too? They've got same setup over at Del Mar. It's the Del Mar shop. Past performances, clocker reports, DRF picks, betting strategies on the big days. Check it all out. They just want to make sure that you're all set up. You've got everything that you need to succeed, all the help that you need when you're handicapping the races there. Let's move on over to Del Mar.
Marvelous.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. It's a Del
see?
Sitting back, sipping my Del Margarita over there. Yeah, as we
it's Del Marvelous.
we get ready for race 1. As you were pointing out, the final races from Saratoga are leading you right into these, first 5 races from Del Mar. So you'll be going back and forth a little bit in this contest. So race number 1 at Del Mar, maiden special weights, 2-year-old fillies here. And let's get rid of our graphic there. We can show you the field. So as is the case in a lot of these, you'll have a Baffert horse who's going to take a lot of money in Usha, Mandela, runner, a first-time starter, McKenzie. Oh, yeah, rightfully. Usha looks super good. Solid in the mornings. What's really nice, too, is you can watch a lot of these horses work out on XB TV if you need help. So, I mean, Ushba is definitely the horse that is very logical, very live of the firsters, of the ones who have run. What about Q? Didn't think ran poorly. Those 2 races are fine. And in a race like this, she has 2 races of experience and nobody else has a race. So that could go a long way in races like this, just from like a fitness standpoint. I like the fact that she's drawn well. Maybe she can just kind of fall into it if some of this field is not fit. But, what do you think here from like playing standpoint, or how will we look to play this race if we're playing contests or pick 5s, things like that?
Tough to get around the top 2.
Yeah.
And McKenzie.
Yeah.
McKechnie, right? Yeah.
Yep.
They look real superior. Their workouts are excellent. These trainers are getting these horses prepared to win first time out.
So Baffert at the meet so far, he's had 3 first-time starters. 2 of them won, and the only reason why the other one didn't is because he ran against his own horse. He finished 1st and 4th in one race. So his horses have been live to start. Mandela has been 6 for 21 over the last year with first-time starters as well. The dam of this horse, Mother, she was a good one. She won her debut. And then she was second in the grade 1 Del Mar debutante. She won the Rags to Riches. Then she was just in great stakes and graded stakes races early on in her career. So very precocious there. And McKechnie is the first full from that one. Ushma,
I did want to give Thought Process a second look. That was the only other horse that kind of caught my eye. And I think it's a workout pattern. Usually in races like this, what I look for where there's no form really on anybody is the longest, fastest gate work closest to the race. And Thought Process actually owns that. That July 13th Los Al work, 59-3, Hanley from the gate, 1 out of 12, fits that to a T. The others are really close.
And
Usha has one that's 1 minute flat, or 1 minute and 3, Hanley from the gate on July 12th, and that's really it from the gate works. I think Lady of Light has one that's close, but I don't really particularly like that horse in this spot.
The sixth thought process, just a couple of small positives. D'Amato, 18 for the last 172 with first time starters. That used to be a number that was a lot lower than that. He's actually been improving. So he's at 10%, and the ROI is $1.72. So for a barn that gets bet a little bit, that's not bad. Like, they're starting to get a lot better, and they've had some recent success. What I like about the pedigree too, in comparison with the work tab. So the pedigree, the dam was a solid horse. She was just long on the turf. That was where she did her best work. You can see she won the Kirtana going a mile and a half on the turf at Churchill, and she won a couple times going a mile and a half on the turf. The reason why I like it is because, so we know pedigree wise, he should be able to, or she should be able to go long. In the morning, she's showing a speed. So if you get a little bit of both of those, that's how the pedigrees become really nice, when you can get some speed and then some of the stamina from the opposite side. So maybe from Collected, they're getting some of that speed because that's what Collected was. And then from the dam, they can get some of that stamina just to be a little fit in a race like this for a horse who was able to go long. Yeah, I thought she was solid. First full to race. And then I mentioned, what about Q? Those just felt like the two price horses to me, but I couldn't get that creative here. As Barry pointed out, the 3 and the 4 do look like they're the horses to beat. If either of the two outside horses were double digits and float up, that's probably who you play in a contest. That's how you have to play it in some of these race by race situations. Let's go to race number 2. 7 furlongs, $50,000 claimers in here. Another race that won't be the biggest field in the world, and you'll have a horse to the outside that's in the Sweezy barn, Mission Beach, who's getting some class relief in here. You've got the 4 Heart Headed, who's coming off of better races too. That 50 starter allowance was not bad. In the races prior to that with Tapalo, King of Gosford, and Stay Hot, those are a lot tougher company than this field particularly is. And then you have Instinct Dioro, who was a winner last time out, is trying to go for his 3rd in a row. I will say, just in not having looked at these morning line odds, since you and I have been talking and they just flopped, my first glance was that the 6 horse is not going to be 4-1.
No way.
Like that. I was actually shocked that like the 6 and the 4 were different odds, because I thought the 6 would be like an overwhelming favorite in here. And that doesn't mean this horse has to win this race or anything, but just based on form, where Mission Beach wins his debut last year for Baffert, then tries Stakes Company, finds it a little too tough, goes over to the Brittany Russell barn. They drop out of stakes, win, then step back up into Stakes Company, find the Stakes Company a little too tough, change barns, almost do the same thing again. Didn't start in a stakes race, but was in a really tough spot coming off of the bench, $100,000 first level allowance race, a little bit slow that day. I mean, you come back to the track that he won at. He's drawn well to the outside. He has some speed, but we've actually seen him pass horses too. I think he's more of a sprinter than going long. He looks like he's training well leading back into this. Like, if he's a bettable price in this race, I would be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's really tough to get by Heart Headed.
Yeah.
But if you like Mission Beach, which I do a little bit,
Because I only thought he wouldn't be playable. I thought it would be flipped a little bit more. I thought maybe Heart Headed we'd get a little more of a chance to play in here. But based off that 6-5 morning line, it looks like that Heart Headed will be your overwhelming kind of between, I guess, the 2 and the 4 are. They look like they're like that top tier, because they're.
I mean, I can see somebody not wanting to take a shot with Heart Headed based on the fact that this horse has been running really kind of turf races, especially at a higher level. But I think just the drop in class itself puts this one in the mix.
Yep. And the key, like, I love him sitting a little bit on January 15th, so he's got some lead, some speed. He can sit off a little bit. Stay Hot is if you go through all 3 of those horses, Stay Hot's a multiple stakes winner. King of Gosford had a brutal trip in the Oceanside the other day, but is a legitimate horse, is a multiple stakes winner. And Raging Torrent, who was second in that race, is in really nice form right now. Went over and won the Maxfield at Churchill. He's a solid sprinter at the moment. So I I mean, this is again early. The early part of the Del Mar card is going to be the difficult part of the contest
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it's a
Because
little chalkier.
especially at this point, because you have
You're sixth
three
and
other
seventh.
races left,
Yeah,
and
right.
you want to try to get position if you're not already there. So if your back is against the wall at this point, you might be up against it because
You can't. You
these
don't
you can't
find
make up
prices.
the price, right. You
There's
can't
not
make
the
up the
8-1
points.
horses that you think are viable, right? So you kind of got to hope by this point you're in enough striking range where you can probably play one of those three horses,
Right. I
two,
would
four,
go with
six.
Mission Beach personally.
If Mission
I'm with
Beach is
you.
offering value, right? Me
Right.
too. If they're similar, but yeah, I thought the 4 and the 2. I mean, just the two's in good form right now. Instinctioro. There's nothing like crazy about this horse. Drop
But I
down
think
on
there's some speed in here to get in that horse's
to
way.
hurt him, and
Yeah,
going from 5.5 to 7. That's a big difference. That's a big
absolutely.
difference. So that's a lot of if he has to deal with the horse to the inside, come out fighting. That's what's hard too is you've got 8 Clap who's stepping up off of a poor performance last time out in just a field of 4. Instinctioro is speed. Come out fighting has only won races right on the lead. And you can eliminate horses in here pretty easily, and it gets you down to just 2 or 3. So maybe you just got to play the best value of those ones if that's the way you want to do it. And maybe that is Mission Beach for Sweezy trying to get the Del Mar win out here. Let's get to the third race, Barry. This one is 5 furlongs on the turf. We've got a 50 starter in this one. And what is a little difficult about this race is you don't have that many horses with good turf sprint form. The 2 down to the inside have solid form in turf sprints, Beer Money and Queen's Code, but not win machines. As this is just a 50 starter allowance, there aren't horses that have a ton of victories. And both of those horses, you could see even getting a little compromised by pace because both of them are speedy. Maybe cutting back, they can sit off a little bit, but there are definitely versions of this race where the 1, 2, 3 are all going. The 5 doesn't want to be too far out of it. So they could be going pretty quick. The 8 Dance Man, he's been forwardly placed, as has the 9 Without Borders. That's a version or 2 of this race. Give me some of the horses that you're looking at.
Yeah, I felt initially, and I still do a little bit, that Queen's Code is the most likely winner here.
I think so too.
Um,
Cutting back.
she's cutting back just enough, and I think that's enough to dull her speed early, just enough
Give her a
to
little
give her a
finish.
little off the pace, a little off the pace trip that should fit her perfectly. But I will say I kind of like Without Borders here.
Mm-hmm.
I like that last race. I think that horse has improved since that first race where it got put up on DQ. The downside is this horse never actually has finished first, but I think that'll raise the price just enough to keep this one in a range that would be suitable, especially if you're kind of struggling in the tournament late. This one will offer a little bit of value for you.
And that's the key, right? And where do you stand at this point of the tourney? A horse that I know fits at the level, but I don't know if fits at the distance is Phosphorescence. This feels like it's a starting point for Phosphorescence coming off the bench, get this race under his belt, and then in 4 weeks, he's going to be good. Second start off the bench, go longer.
Going a mile.
Exactly. Yep,
Going
exactly.
Yep.
So that's what I'm looking at here. Now, while I do think that is most likely, could they go fast enough in this race that he may come flying late? That could happen because we were pointing out there is a lot of speed in here. I would probably want to take a little more on him, more like 8-1, if that's the prospect of him having to get a trip and come from way off of it and also be completely 100% ready to fire off the 7-month break. So I'd probably want a little more price with him if that were built into it. Maybe at this point, if you're looking for a really bust out horse, the 1's not a bad one because he has speed. He's drawn down to the inside and he has sit off and passed horses before. He is a type of horse who could fall into a nice trip if you're looking for a double-digit horse at this point of the contest and you need one. He's proven as a turf sprinter and look at his last race going 5. That's pretty good. that May 24th race, that first level allowance where he's sitting just off, he moves to the lead, he's only beaten a length that day. That type of effort would stack up okay in here against horses that we have some question marks of. That's why I agree with you with Queen's Code. I think normally I wouldn't like to look at a horse like this, but she does fit very well with this group at the level on the cutback. So
All the signs are there. I mean, the class relief is just enough, and everything kind of aligns for this horse to run really, really well.
The 4-horse third start off the bench, tries the grass for the first time. He's a fine horse, and he might get an okay trip. I like the fact that in all 4 of his races, he's kind of shown us that he like some different things. He can win on the lead. He's come from way out of it. He's sat kind of mid pack. He doesn't really have a ton of overwhelming direct turf pedigree. Like there's not monster turf siblings that I jump out on. He's fine. Like he's in the mix. Like he fits with this group. He's just not all that enticing for me in here at his price. Like he's just okay.
Kind of like his namesake.
Right. Yeah. There we go. who
kind of okay.
Coach Cronin over there with the Brodens with the Brodens. I said with the Bruins. Go talk to your bro over there though, coach. Let's get to race number 4 as we move to $10,000 claimers going 6 furlongs on the dirt here. My friend, we look at a couple that will take a lot of betting support in here, with the ones to start are the 8, Dancing Dana, who's sharp. This is a mare who's looking for her 3rd in a row. She sat off the pace a little bit, a couple starts back. Seemed like they were just kind of trying to find her level where she fits, and it seems like they found it. This is a good spot for her. Drawn to the outside, 3rd start of the form cycle. Lots of positives. They have a horse like Why Behave, who comes off of a long layoff, hasn't raced since September of last year. The barn's been pretty successful, though, with horses coming off long layoffs like that. Those are a couple of major players in here. It does look like Dancing Dana will be a pretty heavy favorite. How are you approaching this race?
This is a tough race. I mean these lower level claimers, they're really, really competitive, especially
politically correct there with the lower level. I like what you did.
Yep. I'm getting better with it. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of sometimes at the mercy of how the horses are feeling that day. Like with these lower level horses, you'll see horses that don't look that great on paper actually look good on the track and run to their looks a lot in these kind of races. I know it happens all the time at Gulfstream, where you see these horses on the track and like, man, I didn't even like this horse, but looking at this horse on the track, looks like he's going to run a monster race. That being said, I looked at 2 horses here. Awesome Taylor was one of them. I think the class relief will do this horse a lot of good in this spot. I know this horse has been beaten by a couple of these a few times, like Gypsy Lynn and Roman Empress. But I think that little bit of a class relief will make all the difference, even with those other horses in here.
And what's nice about him or her just throwing her in, especially if you're playing like a pick 4, pick 5, or if you're down at this point of the contest and you're looking for, big prices, she can pass horses. And there are versions of this race that she gets a really nice trip and comes rolling. She fits at this level with this group of horses. She just needs the type
a good
of trip.
Right.
Against this group, which she rarely gets in these smaller fields in Southern California. But this is
usually
a bigger
that happens. That happens with these cheaper horses like this, where they're always competitive at a certain level, but they just need the right trip or the right setup.
And then you forgot about them after like 7 or 8 times in a row, where you're like, okay, they're beating 4 or 5 lengths, and they just didn't get the type of trips they needed. And in here, there are versions of this race where the 1 goes, where the 2 goes, where the 5 Sugar is right there in the mix throughout, where Roman Empress has been able to show speed before. Dancing Dana can be close up, as can Why Behave. All of a sudden, there could be 4 or 5 horses going, and that brings the 4 into the race.
Yeah, I mean, at 20 to 1 in the morning line, I can't resist a horse like that. Although, at this point in the contest, that would be more of a, automatic if you're down to
Yeah,
play a horse like this, like
yep,
Awesome Taylor. Um, I also think Gypsy Lynn
that's mine. Yeah,
has a really good shot, just based on the same thing. It's just class. The class relief will probably make all the difference. Being, this horse was running with 32,000 open claimers last September, albeit in a turf race. Um, but still, that's like exponentially better than most of these horses.
so she can sit off a little bit, which is positive. She can also maybe be the fastest horse in this race if they wanted to go. Like her, Dancing Dana, Morning Addiction are probably the three fastest. So if one of them got really aggressive, I like that she's got options. As you pointed out, she just faced better. So her last race against Indy Star, looking at that race, Indy Star is an 8-time winner. Indy Star was beating 32 open claimers in May, just a couple months ago. So she's facing a horse that's beating 32 claimers, and she's now in for 10. So she's just getting like major class relief when you look at it like that and who was beating her in that 12-5 starter allowance last time out. Yeah, it looks just a really good spot. She's proven at Del Mar. We have no problem with her getting the trip. I think she makes a whole lot of sense in here. One that is fair price at 10-1. I just don't know what to expect from this horse, Sweet Layla Ray.
That was my problem with Sweet Layla
right?
Ray.
And so if she's a fair price, I would throw her into a pick 4 or a pick 5. She might be a hard horse to trust in a contest because I just don't know what you're going to get. But if you're using 3 or 4 horses in this race and you're throwing in a couple prices, she's just exiting better races. A lot better races. And when she was down at comparable races like these ones at Golden Gate, which are not far off of this field, she's in the mix there. Like, I would not be shocked to see her run well. She's a really tough read coming off those last
coming
few.
off all those synthetic and turf races, she's only
Yep.
run on the regular dirt or traditional
Once,
dirt once.
and it was
So
going long.
right, and you can't really judge her on that. So,
No.
you know, that definitely an interesting horse in this spot. I mean, obviously you got to see how things are playing out on the odds board, but definitely keep this one on the radar because if this one floats up a little bit,
Yeah.
she's definitely worth a shot at a decent price.
Sugar's in nice form. She's 12-1. She's going to be involved probably throughout. And another one, just to mention, Morning Addiction down on the inside. She's 10-1. If you toss her last race, you can make an excuse for it.
Yeah, she's
Look at
kind of
her
right there.
But look at her dirt form. See, that's the difference. She's just a way better dirt horse. So you go back to her and you start saying, okay, overall, she's just better on the dirt. She has 3 wins at Del Mar, 2 of them at a mile and 1 of them at 7 furlongs. So that was my only concern is what kind of trip is she going to get?
Yeah, it's tough on the inside at that 6 furlongs.
Can she sit? Because she's not really, I don't think she's as fast as 1 or 2 others in here. Is she going to be able to shove through from the rail and go? She did going 7 furlongs. We've seen her do that. I don't know if she can do that here. Can she sit right behind horses and pass them? I'm not sure. She's a good dirt horse and she fits at the level. It just comes down to trip. And when horses are 10-1, sometimes you're fine throwing them in because their price is built into that. You know what? They're not a really short price. I'll throw them in at 10-1. This one was probably one of the races that you feel like you can at least, of the Del Mar races early on, that you have some opportunities to get a little more value. The first couple are challenging because those shorter price races are harder. You got to make a real decision there, in those smaller fields.
Right, because, obviously you don't want to overload your picks with chalk because you get leapfrogged in a heartbeat.
But you don't want to include horses that you don't think have a chance.
Either,
right? At all,
so
especially when it's not like a win place tournament. When it's just a win, you're not even getting I got a nice place price. It was a $2 win place, so at least I got my $7.80 or $9 to place. If you run a good second and you lose to the favorite, you don't get anything. So you got to make that decision. Do you take the 420, and the $20, with your your 10 to win and just move up? Or do you say, you know what, I'm just going to keep taking shots all the way through? It comes down to, do you like those prices in those races? right?
Right.
At at least in the fourth race, you and I could talk ourselves into a couple horses that are playable in a contest.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the dilemma, and that's why some people have a hard time with live kind of format instead of
Yes.
the pick and pray because, you could talk yourself off of winners.
And then when
Or
you do that one time, you get inside your own head. Then
oh
you
yeah,
start humming and pissing off. And why did I do that with that? And you start thinking about if that horse would have won, look at where I would be. I would be sitting in second right now. When unfortunately, when that happens, you're done. Because I do it all the time.
yeah, you second guess
You're
yourself.
done.
You're
You're
through.
already like, especially in a contest, you're just done. You're already because like that's just a bad mindset. You got to understand. I've become way better at doing this as I've gotten older. Is like, and you know what? That horse was shorter than I thought, and they got a lucky trip that they needed to get that lucky trip at that short price. I'm okay.
I'm
Boom.
okay. Yeah.
And I'm moving on. Like you just, and then at the end of the day, if you want to look back and go, son of a bitch, I could have had that one. And if I did that, like that's fine. But when you're in the middle of it, you can't do that because you have to. It's just like when you're playing basketball or baseball, right? Like you've done it, man. You've done it at high levels. It's like how many times you've been out there and you're like, why the hell can I not hit a shot today?
Oh
What
man.
is going on? And then when that happens, you're a magnet for the ball coming right to you wide open again. And then you're going to have to start going, I'm supposed to take this shot because I'm open. It's in the flow of the offense, but I can't take 5 in a row and miss all 5, can I? Right? That's when that starts happening to you.
Well, that's
And
the thing, as a basketball player, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a video out there. There used to be a commercial. It was a Foot Locker commercial that it had James Harden, Scottie Pippen, and Charles Barkley in it. And Charles Barkley says, all the greats have short memories.
yep.
And that's you gotta have it. Yeah, you have to be in basketball because you can't remember that shot that you just hit nothing but glass on when you're shooting your next shot. And the
Yep.
same thing translates to betting horses and especially in contest play. You have to have the short memory. You can't just dwell on something or a mistake you made. You have to keep playing through that. And the same, it applies here because if you miss a horse that, probably paid decent that you had on your radar and you switched off, you can't beat yourself up mentally over it. You just got to flush it and keep going.
Yeah.
And that's what separates, a lot of these good tournament players from others is they don't let the bad parts get in their head so much that they start changing their strategy. They
And
they
let me
kind
say
of
some
stick
of
to their
that
guns.
and like that can be worked on and you can
Hmm.
get
Yeah, it's
better
a
at
skill. It's a skill.
you can get better at that, but there's a lot of people that I know that are like naturally more like that, a little bit like less emotional as it is,
Hmm.
a little bit less high low, a little more stoic, and not even
Right.
in a bad way, but
Hmm.
that's the ones that you can see they're really able to succeed in these settings in the pressure situations too, right? When it's like, oh, yeah, big deal. Okay. Like they don't get, and they're not thinking about what could have happened or, oh my gosh, that was my only opportunity. They're not doing those things that I might do sometimes,
Well,
You
usually
got
the
to,
people that have that kind of even sort of temperament understand the game and how the swings go. I
and a lot of
mean,
times they've been there, right? You're
right,
right. It's an
exactly. They've been
experience
through
thing.
that whole thing.
They've been
Yeah.
there. They've been, and you know what sounds weird for me? It kind of went one extreme and then it went the opposite. Right after I got sick, I thought that the world kind of owed me something. Right. So I thought that as soon as I got like a little healthier, like I'm going to hit something big right away. Like the world's going to, I was sick. I was in the hospital. I had cancer. I almost died. I lost 40 pounds. I was sitting there for months at a time. Like I'm alive because I'm meant to be something great. I'm going to win all this money right now. And that was a bad mindset for myself because you're expecting something, right? It's not that I wouldn't do, I'm always going to do the work, right? I'm never looking for a handout, but you're expecting something to happen that honestly, which might not happen.
You're right,
Like it's
exactly.
not, there's no guarantee that that's ever happening. There's nothing written down in the stars that says that's happening. And now it's funny as I've gotten a little older and that mindset has completely flipped for me. It's kind of gone the other way to where like there were times like 2 years ago or 5 years ago where I was in spots like in between jobs, or I work freelance for these places and then maybe that one stops and that one starts in a month. And so there's like these in between times where you're
Gaps.
kind of struggling and you don't have a whole lot, or you can get really negative. And at those times, what's funny, what I would actually tell myself was like, man, this was as bad. This wasn't even close to how bad as I had it at the worst of my life.
Right.
Like the mindset was able for me to easily flip. Like when I'm complaining about having bad days, losing races, which is bad, right? It's like, I was almost about to die. Like I would put it into a little bit of perspective for myself. So it was
Yeah.
funny. I could see the growth from me being like a whiny little baby right afterwards, to then flipping it and being like, okay, like I had some tough beats. I've had days where it's like I've been alive for hundreds of thousands and stuff and this and that, and I missed, but you know what? I'm alive.
Right.
Like, and that's not like that's a perspective you have to have, and you have to understand that like I know in my heart there's a few of these days out there for me. I know it.
Oh yeah.
Like I know, and you
Absolutely.
do too. Like we know that there's the 15, 20, $30,000 days for me. Maybe this year one of these Saturdays is mine that we win on the Fun in the Sunday. Maybe that last table day is yours. Maybe it's next year. It's a pick 6, it's a pick 5, it's the Breeders' Cup. We'll have lots of opportunities. You just have to have the faith in yourself, in the work that you do, in your own ability, that one of these days is going to be yours.
Well,
Right?
I mean, I've always said this is one of the most important things about horse race handicapping and betting and trying to make money is the mental game. Um,
Yep.
because you have to have the mental fortitude to accept loss.
And what we're doing right
And
now is really important.
oh
Having a
yeah,
person like you for me to just talk to about this stuff and go back and forth instead of you're just kind of thinking about it in your head. It's like when you go to therapy, a lot of the stuff that you do at therapy and a lot of stuff that you say, it's not rocket science and reinventing the wheel. It's just getting the stuff out,
out, yes,
saying it, and it's like
off
getting
your
it out,
chest.
getting it off the chest, hearing the bounce back from just another person, and it's like a little bit of a weight that comes off of you. And that's really key, just verbalizing a lot of this stuff, because then what it does is every time you have a conversation like this, it gets a little more set in your head. These habits get a little more burned into your brain. I'm teaching my son stuff. It's all repetitive. He's 4.5 years old. We're trying to learn all these things every day. When we do it this way, the next day he knows a little bit more. The next day he knows a little bit more. Same sort of thing. And sometimes we'll go off on these little tangents, which I love, because I always appreciate when people I'm listening to do, because same sort
We
of
don't
thing.
talk about it much, and I
No.
think it should be talked about more. The
Yeah.
mental game, as far as where your head's at and how you approach the races and actually betting, because the handicapping is one piece of it. It's not the total, because if you think about it, the only way to win is to make the right bet, not pick the right horse. You have to make the right bet.
And then we all have the stories too, the bad beat. You have that
Oh
like
yeah.
sick feeling in your stomach. It's
Oh
funny, and then like a lot of people sometimes in horse racing will be like, I don't want to hear the bad beat story. I'm kind of the opposite. Like I'm like I know what that feeling is, so I'm like, get it out. Come on, this is a safe space here. And I've actually thought, because I just didn't know how something like this would play. I thought something a few years ago when I was thinking about like segments and fun stuff to do. I thought having like a once a week show, like a call in line for people would be really fun. Or, where people could call in, share their bad bets, like share the bad beats. They have the segment on ESPN sort of like that,
yeah.
where people like tweet in. But in horse racing, it would be even better because it's sicker, right? We have like, and we know, like when you try to explain to somebody in horse racing, like, oh my God, you have no idea what just happened. And like, you can't explain it to
You're
them,
right.
right? You're like, this horse in that race was this. And then I only had 2 horses in this race. The one of them got left at the gate and the other one was stuck. There's no way this is happening. You know what I mean? And you're trying to explain it to them and they look at you like it's Greek. But if you were in a space with other people who all understood, you'd kind of laugh and like, you'd feel a little bit of, I always thought that would be funny. Like call in, Barry and I are going to sit back here. It's Sunday night. It's like Love Line, like the format. Like we're going to sit back here. We're smoking our stogies or we're firing up a bleezy. We're having a drink. We're going to hear you vent. Barry and I are going to, oh no, that's brutal. But wait, that horse you needed too. Oh, like, and you kind of make you feel like better about it. And so you're not beating yourself up all the next week. Just like you said, it's your therapy session where you can call in, get it off your chest, and then that bad beat is done. Now you can move on. You told the story. We all had a good laugh together. And now, and now let's talk about it. Who knows? Maybe when we get older and we retire and we have,
We have a
fun.
session just
Yeah,
sitting at the
we can sit.
coffee table.
We can sit back there and chop it up. So let's finish things up here, my friend. Hopefully we're doing well in this contest. Hopefully we're alive in any early pick fives as we get to race number 5. We have 2-year-olds going long on the turf. We can see lots of things happening here because some of these horses that sprinted on the dirt in their debut took a totally different ball game here. May just have been get them on the dirt, try to get a race under them, and now let's move forward. We do have to start with Michael McCarthy, who has 2 really live first-time starters right next to each other in the middle of the field. He's done a fantastic job with horses going long on the grass, 4 for 20 in the last year with firsters going long on the grass. Very solid for something that's difficult to do. And another firster that I thought was at least worth mentioning, the 7 Sabertooth for Yakteen, who's bred very well. I thought this horse, the Dam, you can take a look at her, Hard to Resist. It was hard to resist, but it's all coming back to me. We got NFL starting in a few weeks coming up again, too. Dam was a 3-time winner, and this is a half to a horse named Going to Vegas, who is a multiple grade 1 winner going long on the turf. So when you think long on the turf, should be right up the alley for this one, Sabertooth. So positive there. The one that I think this horse has to be live just because Patty Gallagher never wins with first-time starters, but Muscled, I watched that gate work. This horse was a step slow from the gate and then zigged and then rushed up and showed a real spark in that July 22nd work. Like, this horse was green, but very fast, and there's certainly something there, which is crazy because this is just a barn that never wins first time out. They're just really patient with their horses. But there's turf pedigree there and some serious ability in the morning, but just really does feel like a turfy horse. So those are a few of the first time there. And those ones that we mentioned are actually all first time starters. Those are live horses in here. Who do you want to talk about, Barry?
Yeah, I think you hit the horses that kind of attracted my attention. Legitimate definitely fits the bill here, and you can see the improvement in that horse's workouts. From May to the present. I think this one is kind of rounding into this race the right way.
And you can see it on the paper, and when you watch the workouts, you will notice that July 11th, that was the more you can't always tell just based on the time, but July 11th was we're going to get really into him for his last work. We're going to make sure he's showing us some early positional speed. This horse, they're getting him ready to try to win.
Right.
Based on what they're doing in the morning. In some horses, you can see they'll get ready to try to run okay, and then they'll move forward in their next one. I think they think this horse can win right away, the way they're patterning him in the morning. And I think he's hard. I can't leave him out anywhere.
And Sabertooth was the other one with a similar kind of pattern. Just the workouts were longer, which actually is better. I think I like that better.
More fit.
So like you said, you see that one workout, July 8th, that real fast one out of the gate, 47 flat. And then you'll see the longer works and kind of the maintenance drills. I think
you have that one that's the fast one that you really get into them, and then
they know what they have there. That's when they knew. They're like, all right, well, this horse can definitely has some speed and can run a little bit.
Now let's just fitten them up.
Right, tighten them up for the first unveiling and see what we get. Gets Raylu, who's a little under the radar out there.
Yeah.
Although he put one over on everybody.
Big price,
the other day, wire to wire, but I don't think that's the case. But he can ride with anybody, so I wouldn't worry about that. The price is probably the more worrisome thing. This horse might get bet a little bit, but we'll see.
Of the horses who have run, the one that I wanted to mention was the 2, because he fits that profile of a horse that I think just got a dirt race under him just to get a little bit of fitness. So he debuts at Churchill and just never gets involved that day. But the winner, Politically Correct, is a good horse.
Pretty
He
good,
comes
yeah.
right back and he wins the Bashford Manor in his second start, earns a 76 Beyer speed figure. So now all of a sudden we go, okay, the race is pretty live that he exits. And he's gonna be a first-time gelding here. We look at the dam. The dam was a horse who didn't try the turf, but this is a half to a horse named Hard Aces, who actually was a multiple graded stakes winner going long and won one of the 2 turf starts. Only tried grass twice, won on one of them. And this is a horse who had no problem going long, actually won the Cougar the second, which is running the day that you and I are recording this on Thursday.
Yes.
At Del Mar. So there's a little turf and definitely some pedigree there for this horse to be better going longer on the turf. They give him the ultimate equipment change. So this might be a horse who I'm not really using that debut race as a gauge for his talent. I like it because it gave him some fitness. Now he gets the equipment change. The horse that he faced was a nice one. He's able to build up a little more stamina now. He gets to the grass. If I'm looking for a big price or maybe a horse to throw in, I could see him of the horses who have run. He has some of the best reasons to move forward here, moving to the grass and going longer.
Yeah, this is a tough race, man.
It is.
This early pick 5 is it's going to give people fits
because the first couple of races they're shorter fields, but there's 2 or 3 chalks in each of those races, which make it a little more difficult because you're not like overwhelming. I'm just going to single this horse and move on. Then these last couple races are really, really challenging. We covered a lot of ground today. We got you all set up for the late pick 5 at Saratoga. We got you set up for the early pick 5 at Del Mar. Those 5 races at Saratoga and then the 5 at Del Mar, they complete the Fun in the Sun handicapping tournament every Saturday all throughout the meet. Remember, if you play in this, if you're one of the top 5 people on Saturday, you make it to the final table. The top 3 people, you get a part of the prize pool for Saturday. So top 3 get paid. Top 5 get a spot at the end of the meet. And it's the same format every time. $10 win plays or $10 win bets only for Saratoga and Del Mar races that we're going to be looking at. Really fun, Barry. You and I, we're going to take a swing this weekend at the Fun in the Sun handicapping tournament at ExpressBet. Get involved. Get to drf.com, shop.drf.com for the Saratoga handicapping store and the Del Mar shop. Don't forget about those clocker reports each and every day. My man, pulling double duty. We really put you to work today. Go
10
have
races.
I was gonna say, go have a drink.
A
take
cold
it easy. You earned it, my friend. Thanks so much, buddy. Anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Just have a good time and let's hit some races this weekend.
Let's do it. We're now up into the fun part of the year. We've got still many opportunities at Saratoga and at Del Mar ahead. Don't forget about that Fun in the Sun tournament over at ExpressBet. Good luck.